what people experienced last night, what they're experiencing now. Another thing I've been hearing from people is just checking on everyone. You have people checking on their parents. You have people checking in with each other, even inside there. Trust me, people are talking about, are you okay? How's your house? What's going on? Can I help you with anything? I've heard a lot of that going around. So just another piece of the story here. Back to you guys.
It's so interesting, Kristen. Stay on the line, Kristen, because the Dunkin' Donuts has power. Only about half of Long Island has power. The latest estimate at 2 o'clock was 900,000 customers without power. So this is like a little sanctuary in the middle of Long Island, right? Where they can actually get some food and get some coffee. That's why it's so crowded.
And you know what? It's actually good to see some smiles on people's face.
So you brought that out, Kristen. So, but it is interesting. Not that many places have power, right?
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Kristen.
No, absolutely. And here, you know, what you're seeing not only here at Dunkin' Donuts, but at 7-Elevens, anything that's open, people are going to. Gas stations are crowded. People are just, we don't know how long we're going to be without power, so people are just trying to stock up and do what they can.
Without power. Nearly 600,000 customers without power. Kristen, thank you. In Connecticut, that's where we're going to head next, up to Fairfield. A friend of mine texted me today, said there was 7 feet of sand on one town road in Fairfield, Connecticut. It is just so bad there. So many of those beach homes just wiped out completely.
Well, let's take a look at the damage, because Joe Torres is there in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I understand, Joe, we can see it, this massive tree behind you. Just uprooted.
Sade and Bill, it's just really unbelievable. Let me give you the statistical breakdown, and then we'll explain why that's important, Bill and Sade. Number one, Fairfield. Approximately 60,000 people live in this town. It is a town 59 square miles wide. 97% of the town right now is without power. And service restoration, it's not even on the radar, according to town officials. Yes, this is only part of the problem. This, by the way, we're outside of the town hall in Fairfield, and this has become the latest tourist attraction in town. Take a look at the size of this. Hey, kids, how you guys doing? At the size of this giant tree that fell. This is one of 3 just on the town green in front of town hall that fell. There are dozens of trees all over town that came down, some of them on power lines, some of them on houses. This one, thankfully, just simply fell down and didn't hurt anyone or anything. Number 2, Fairfield, we mentioned, 59 square miles wide. There's a whole host of other problems on the other side of town. Take a look at some of the video that we shot earlier. Right along the shore, there is a place called South Pine Creek, some beautiful homes there. Can you see the house that's floating in the water? That happened not yesterday. That happened this morning. The tide came in, lifted this water, took it down South Pine Creek. All of the houses that are on that little peninsula there, you can't even get to them, and 5 or 6 of them are damaged really bad. Number 2, flooding was a big problem, and as I mentioned, town leaders will not even get to service restoration. They want to help people get safe, get out of their homes if people need assistance. The shelters here have about 200 people in them, and we got around town, and this is what you need in Fairfield today, in an armored personnel carrier. We spent 2 hours with the police department, and they gave us a guided tour down trees, flooded houses, problems with homes that saw water come up. Jennings Beach, a popular beach here. We took some video. We'll show it to you later. It's unbelievable what we found on the beach and what actually got moved there. So it's just been an amazing picture here in Fairfield, Bill and Sade. The people have been wonderful. The good news, nobody got really hurt seriously. No big injuries to talk about. Town leaders are very happy that local folks here followed the evacuations order, moved out, and allowed police to sort of roam the streets and take care of all the problems. It's been an amazing picture. Again, we were with the police department for 2 hours. We just fed back a whole bunch of video. We're going to piece it together and tell you the story here in Fairfield. It's been a pretty amazing day. We've met some great folks, very resilient, but 97% of the town without power. And again, town leaders say they're not even focused on restoring power right now. There are too many other things to worry about first. So that's the story, the very latest from Fairfield. And you can assume that there are problems like this in Westport, in Darien, in Greenwich, which was extremely hard hit. The one anomaly, the next town up is Bridgeport. And I heard the mayor this morning, the Bridgeport, his first words were, we did okay. And that's probably the best news that we've heard in the last 48 hours.
There was something of a dividing line.
I'm Joe Torres, live in Fairfield, Connecticut. Bill and Sade, back to you.
There was something of a dividing line there.
Yeah, it's almost that was like a dividing line between those two. Absolutely. Yeah, you've got.
Random.
I think if my geography is correct, we're in Fairfield. Next town is the next town is Bridgeport, and yeah, it was very, very random. Bridgeport, where we thought there were going to be some problems, turned out they did somewhat okay.
What's the theory, Joe? What's the theory of getting power back second to clearing some of these roads? Why not try to do both? Because, you know, the days are shorter. There's, less than 11 hours. It's just 10 hours of daylight. Why not do both? Get that power restored. You can work at night, too.
The theory is access. They're having great difficulty with access, Bill. They can't get to the places that they need to get to. They haven't been able to check on places that they need to check. So to clear the access, get trees out of the way, to check on people where they've gotten phone calls, where they've had reports, to make sure that everything is A-OK there. Once they can sort of get those check markers done and taken care of, then they can look at service restoration. But I think people here were of the mindset that they weren't going to get power back anytime soon anyway, so it's no big revelation to say that restoration of power isn't the first priority right now.
Got it. Okay. Good explanation, Joe. All right, Joe Torres in Fairfield, Connecticut, where they were hard hit, 100% without power, and the beach community there just sort of wiped out, and they fortunately evacuated.
Well, another issue that needs to be confronted is transportation. On the phone with us is Charles Seaton with the MTA. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Boy, do you guys have your work cut out for you today. I know it's still too early to tell because you guys are just surveying damage, but any idea how long it's going to take to get things back up and running?
For subways, I have no idea. We're in the process now of assessment and inspection. However, with buses, I have a somewhat happier note. Beginning at 5 p.m. today, we will be reintroducing bus service on a limited basis.
Yeah, that's, Mr. Seaton, that's very good news indeed. In fact, I'm told there's one of these buses rolling out at 3 o'clock. It's sort of a preview, right?
Exactly. Not so much a preview, but it takes us a little while to fill the pipe. So the buses will be rolling out of the depots beginning at about 3, and the service that we will be running will be out there at 5.
For the folks that who depend on buses, and now without the subways, a lot of people more people will be depending on it. Tell us what limited service means and how fast we'll be able to ramp up the buses, because those tracks, there's no tracks, they weren't damaged, so they can just roll out, right?
Exactly. We're limited pretty much by inspecting the buses because they have been garaged since Saturday, and then inspecting the routes that they're running on, and then putting them out for service. Right now it's happening so quickly, I don't know how many routes will be running because it is a limited service, but something else, the fare will be free today and tomorrow we will have more service than we have today.
So you just get on the bus and you...
Yeah. That is great news, for people to get around. Now, let's go back to the subways. What is the first order of business? You know, we saw just some of the video of that water rushing into the subways. Of course, your big concern about the switches. What is your first line of attack?
Well, the big problem with the water is it doesn't go out as fast as it came in. So what we're in the process now of doing is pumping out the water from the underriver tubes in Lower Manhattan and the stations in Lower Manhattan.
Have you guys pegged a time frame on that one? How long it's just going to take just to pump that water out?
No, because it's going to depend on the depth of the water in the tubes, and on a couple of those tubes we have water up to the ceiling. So it's going to take quite some time. It's going to be a long, complicated process.
That is a lot of water.
Mr. Seaton, I guess if there's any kind of, bright cloud above our head here about this, it's that you guys had the foresight on Saturday to move all of the trains out of harm's way and into sort of storage and mothball the situation so that you didn't have them be damaged as well.
Actually, that was devised by Governor Cuomo and Chairman Loda as a way of moving our movable resources out of harm's way after evacuating the vulnerable areas of the city. So naturally, the first thing that we're concerned with was the safety of our customers and our employees, and then moving what movable assets we had to safe locations so we have no damaged subway cars, no damaged buses. The buses are ready to go back into service, and when the subway's back, the subway trains will be ready to go back also.
This is the lifeblood of the city, as you well know, Mr. Seaton. Mass transportation. I mean, a lot of people have cars, and some people would like to limit the use of cars, but the truth is that this is the lifeblood of the city. One of the reasons the schools are closed is because the subways are down, people can't get around, and people who live outside the borough of Manhattan can't get into Manhattan to go to school. They can't, it just limits the city. It basically shuts it down. You guys understand that.
Exactly. Just think about it. The subways and buses are the lifeblood that feeds the skyscrapers in the schools.
Right. So the question is, that's why everyone is very concerned about this. You've got supposedly flying in are thousands of people who are supposed to run the marathon. They're not going to get around by helicopter or limousines. These are average people who want to run the marathon this weekend. They get around by subway. If they're not able to do that, how are they going to do it?
Well, what we're doing right now is we're doing our best to restore subway service as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, it's too early in the game for us to say exactly how fast that's going to be. But we began our assessment at First Light this morning. We've carried it on. We've already begun pumping, cleaning stations, inspecting stations, inspecting our rolling stock. So when it's back, we'll be ready to go.
Okay. Charles Seaton with the MTA. I appreciate it. I know you guys are really busy, but there are millions and millions of people, not just in New York City, but outside, who would love to come in, and a lot of businesses who would like to open and cannot do that until the MTA gets the subways running again. So good luck. Keep us posted. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, happy to.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much. And we are now just receiving word that President Obama is speaking right now.
Throughout the region. And obviously, this is mostly a local responsibility, and the private utilities are going to have to lean forward. But we are doing everything we can to provide them additional resources so that we can expedite getting power up and running in many of these communities. There are places like Newark, New Jersey, for example, where you've got 80–90% of the people without power. We can't have a situation where that lasts for days on end. And so my instructions to the federal agency has been, do not figure out why we can't do something. I want you to figure out how we do something. I want you to cut through red tape. I want you to cut through bureaucracy. There's no excuse for inaction at this point. I want every agency to lean forward and to make sure that we are getting the resources where they're needed as quickly as possible. So I want to repeat my message to the federal government: no bureaucracy, no red tape. Get resources where they're needed as fast as possible, as hard as possible, and for the duration, because the recovery process, obviously, in a place like New Jersey, is going to take a significant amount of time. The recovery process in a lower Manhattan is going to take a lot of time. And part of what we're trying to do here is also to see where are some resources that can be brought to bear that maybe traditionally are not used in these kind of disaster situations. For example, there may be military assets that allow us to help move equipment to ensure that pumping and getting the flooding out of New York subway systems can proceed more quickly. There may be resources that we can bring to bear to help some of the private utilities get their personnel and their equipment in place more swiftly so that we can get power up and running as soon as possible. So my message to the governors and the mayors, and through them to the communities that have been hit so hard, is that we are going to do everything we can to get resources to you and make sure that any unmet need that is identified, we are responding to it as quickly as possible. And I told the mayors and the governors, if they're getting no for an answer somewhere in the federal government, they can call me personally at the White House. Now, obviously, the state, local, federal response is important, but what we do as a community, what we do as neighbors and as fellow citizens is equally important. So a couple of things that I want the public to know they can do. First of all, because our local law enforcement, our first responders are being swamped, to the extent that everybody can be out there looking out for their neighbors, especially older folks, I think that's really important. If you've got a neighbor nearby, you're not sure how they're handling a power outage, flooding, etc., go over, visit them, knock on their door, make sure that they're doing okay. That can make a big difference. The public can be the eyes and ears in terms of identifying unmet needs. Second thing, The reason we're here is because the Red Cross knows what it's doing when it comes to emergency response. And so for people all across the country who have not been affected, now's the time to show the kind of generosity that makes America the greatest nation on earth. And a good place to express that generosity is by contributing to the Red Cross. Obviously, you can go on their website. The Red Cross knows what they're doing. They're in close contact with federal, state, and local officials. They will make sure that we get the resources to those families as swiftly as possible. And again, I want to thank everybody here who's doing such a great job when it comes to the disaster response. The final message I just say is, during the darkness of the storm, I think we also saw what's brightest in America. I mean, I think all of us obviously have been shocked by the force of Mother Nature as we watch it on television. At the same time, we've also seen nurses at NYU Hospital carrying fragile newborns to safety. We've seen incredibly brave firefighters in Queens, waist deep in water, battling infernos and rescuing people in boats. One of my favorite stories is down in North Carolina, the Coast Guard going out to save a sinking ship. They sent a rescue swimmer out, and one of the rescue swimmer said, "Hi, I'm Dan. I understand you guys need a ride." That kind of spirit of resilience and strength, but most importantly, looking out for one another, that's why we always bounce back from these kinds of disasters. This is a tough time for a lot of people, millions of folks all across the eastern seaboard, but America's tougher, and we're tougher because we pull together, we leave nobody behind, we make sure that we respond as a nation, and remind ourselves that whenever an American is in need, all of us stand together to make sure that we're providing the help that's necessary. So I just want to thank the incredible response that we've already seen, but I do want to remind people this is going to take some time. It is not going to be easy for a lot of these communities to recover swiftly, and so it's going to be important that we sustain that spirit of resilience, that we continue to be good neighbors for the duration until everybody's back on their feet. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Red Cross.
We were just listening to President Obama in D.C. at the Red Cross headquarters giving instructions, federal instructions, saying he doesn't want any bureaucracy, no red tape, and there's no excuse for inaction. He wants every agency to lean forward and make sure federal resources are available to state and local governments. Obama was scheduled to go to a campaign event in Ohio tomorrow. That has been canceled, and he instead is going to be touring some of the destruction in New Jersey.
Governor Christie today, who was a spokesman for, a big campaigner for Mitt Romney, giving praise to the president, saying, it was good of him to talk. He talked yesterday to him. He talked today, a conference call with 13 governors in the states from North Carolina all the way up to New Hampshire and Rhode Island, and several big city mayors trying to coordinate the efforts. I thought it was interesting. He gave the example of the rescue in North Carolina, and he also talked about some of the rescues we saw last night. Firefighters in Queens and the Rockaways were actually wading in the water to try to get to rescue people from burning houses, and also the rescues at New York University Hospital with the little infants coming out, and he made reference, so clearly he was watching some of the coverage and was moved. We're going to take a quick break, reset, and be back with more of Eyewitness News' continuing coverage of the aftermath of the disaster, Hurricane Sandy. We'll be right back.
This winter on Broadway, glass slippers are so back. The world's most treasured fairy tale comes to Broadway for the first time ever. A spectacular new production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries living in these New York counties. Call now and let United Healthcare help find a plan that could give you the benefits you're looking for, like an AARP Medicare Complete plan insured through United Healthcare. It can combine Medicare Parts A and B with prescription drug coverage and more, like primary care doctor visits for a $0 copay, all in one simple plan for a $0 monthly premium, no more than what you already pay for Part B. If you live in these New York counties, This Medicare Advantage plan offers you routine vision, dental, and hearing coverage, an extensive network of doctors, and access to Pharmacy Saver with prescriptions as low as $2 at pharmacies and retail locations like these. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Call United Healthcare now and see if an AARP Medicare Complete plan is right for you.
Most of the U.S. Senate is made up of lawyers and career politicians. They haven't passed a budget in 3 years, and they mostly look like Chris Murphy, another lawyer and career politician.
I'm definitely not. I struggled out of bankruptcy and grew a business, creating 600 good jobs here in Connecticut. But now our economy is hurting. And if you think this is the best we can do, then Murphy's your guy. It's time to think differently. I'm Linda McMahon, and I approve this message.
Never miss a moment of the ABC shows you love. Enjoy the last 4 episodes of your favorite shows whenever you want with Prime Time On Demand from Time Warner Cable. It's free, it's easy, and it's already yours. Time Warner Cable. Enjoy better.
No sooner plan better with Eyewitness News and AccuWeather. This is a special edition of Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Sandy's Aftermath.
A superstorm still wreaking havoc across our area. In Monmouth Beach, scenes of unbelievable devastation. Boats ripping off their moorings, slamming into a restaurant. More than 2 million in New Jersey without power. In Long Beach, homes underwater and uninhabitable, displacing scores of residents. And in Connecticut, downed trees leave more than 600,000 residents in the dark. And worse, 3 huge shorefront homes burned to the ground. And dramatic water rescues in Little Ferry. Hundreds of homeowners stranded by rushing floodwaters. The National Guard pulled them to safety. Good afternoon. I'm Sade Bitterenwall.
And I'm Bill Ritter. We are continuing our coverage of Sandy's aftermath. It's shortly after 3 o'clock, 3:07 to be exact, 19 hours since the hurricane made landfall in southern New Jersey. We're now getting, as we take to the air, especially an incredible look at the damage along the coastline. Let's look, in fact, at some of these aerials from Atlantic City, from Newscopter 7. We said yesterday we would see all the damage once the choppers could get up, and now they're up. Sand and water, debris spread out across roadways that are several blocks from the beach. Jim Dolan in Atlantic City said pieces of wood strewn 4 blocks from where they started from. Some buildings suffering storm damage. Governor Christie says it's going to be quite a while before life can return to normal.
The level of devastation at the Jersey Shore is unthinkable. And we know that there are many people who own homes, who we've evacuated, who are going to want to get back onto the island to assess the damage to their homes. We are nowhere near being able to let you back on.
Boy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, as for some of the other important headlines this hour, there have been at least 20 storm-related deaths in our area. Limited MTA bus service will resume by 5 p.m. and full bus service should resume tomorrow. There is, however, no word yet on the subways. All East River bridges have now been reopened.
And, of course, public schools are closed tomorrow. Again, power remains the huge problem. Millions and millions of people in the tri-state without power. We're estimating at least 1 out of 3 homes, maybe higher, have no electricity. We want to get to our power desk in the Eyewitness Newsroom. Heather O'Rourke is staffing it for us. What are the numbers as of 3 o'clock, Heather?
Well, we're going to start with New Jersey power outages. We have a lot of people without power in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, over 2.5 million residents are without power. You can call PSE&G's customer service line at 1-800-436-PSEG. And in New York City, over 600,000 customers without power. Out on Long Island, you have 900,000. Westchester, 180,000. Con Ed customers can dial 1-800-75-CON-ED. LIPA, 1-800-490-0075. And then in Connecticut, we have close to 600,000 customers without electricity. Connecticut Light and Power phone number is toll-free 800-286-2000 and United Illuminating Company 1-800-7-CALL-UI. Heather O'Rourke reporting from the Power Desk.
Okay, Heather, thank you. We want to check back in with Lee Goldberg. And Lee, can you tell us about this evening, what we can expect?
Well, conditions are certainly improving, Sade. I just wanted to speak to the fact that it has been quite a year of supercharged extreme weather. This is what we woke up a year ago today. This is what it looked like across the area with huge trees down and feet of snow in the northern suburbs. Remember, we couldn't get power back in Connecticut for many, many days. And now this year we wake up to scenes like this in Middle Village, Queens, with huge trees down. And, of course, the inundation of water across the area that is now making us rethink what can hit the tri-state area and at what time of year. Are there really any rules that can't be broken now on the weather map, and then what verifies? Look at what's happening right here across West Virginia in the wake of this storm. We're talking over 30 inches of snow in parts of the Appalachians on the western side of what was a hurricane. As it moved ashore as what's called a post-tropical storm, that it became this massive hybrid where it was part nor'easter and part hurricane and did the worst of both. It's really almost bent the whole weather map out of shape. I mean, 70 degrees, near 70 in Burlington, Vermont, yet it's 43 in Louisville, and then of course we have the snow and the higher elevation. So it's really just rearranged not only the landscape, but also a lot of the meteorology on the weather map. Our temperatures are in the mid and upper 50s, but 49 in Lakehurst. You don't see some stations reporting because of all the power problems we've had across the area. The wind gusts continue to be in the 20 to 30 mile per hour range, which is good news. We're coming off the threshold of 50 miles an hour, which is where you see some damage. Our camera's still bouncing on the RFK Bridge, where, by the way, of course, we had to close at 7:30 last night because of a wind gust that was close to 100 miles an hour. Still have a lot of clouds, not a lot of rain across the area, but you will see showers from time to time. This storm, as of now, and we'll have to wait to see when all the numbers come out, tied the Long Island Express for strongest storm ever to make landfall. And, of course, this coming into New Jersey and taking that abrupt, sharp left turn was just the first timer. A high wind gust of 96 miles per hour at Eaton's Neck. We saw, I'll show you more wind gusts, but I mean 80 to 90 miles per hour across the area. And then the highest storm surge, remember, this is late last night, the 12.5-foot storm surge at Kings Point. And we just saw the pictures that Joe Shore showed us from Fairfield, Connecticut. I mean, the storm reports are wide-ranging, all about wind and surge and flood, not necessarily rainfall flooding. That's not what we're talking about. And near the Hackensack River in Little Ferry, we've seen Sarah Wallace all morning. That's not because of rain that's come down from the clouds. I mean, we didn't get an inch in some places. It's all of the water and ocean that's been pushed not only in the nearby northern suburbs, but all the way up into the Hudson Valley and Catskills, their tidal flooding warnings. Eaton's Neck, 96 miles per hour. Look at Islip at 90 miles per hour. In White Plains, 72. The Park coming in at 62, but there were gusts that were higher than that in Manhattan. Across New Jersey in the 70s and 80s, 88 mile per hour gusts in Montclair. And then in Connecticut, same idea, over hurricane force, or in hurricane force at Bridgeport. This is an entire loop showing the actual turn, and you can actually, within this loop, see the transition from a tropical system to more of a nor'easter type system. It's coming up here. It waited in the Gulf Stream, allowed itself to maintain its strength, and then powered into the coast, and then it looks more like a nor'easter that's now moving slowly here through central and western Pennsylvania. It's actually not that far away, about 250 miles off to our west, but such a large circulation. We happen to be in a window here where it's fairly light, but at the same time, more showers can come in, kick up the winds at times, and also you can see a couple of breaks in the clouds. That's why we've gotten reports of rainbows over the past few hours. It's going to go through western Pennsylvania and slowly make its way up. This was the actual landfall, which, by the way, prolonged problems because it looked like it was headed directly to Cape May, then took a little bit of a northerly jog and went right into Atlantic City. Wave heights. This is a great illustration of how the building surf just began to pour into that right angle that we have with Long Island and New Jersey. Look how it just funnels right in and amplified the surges in the harbor and then, of course, extended inland. You can see what the futurecast shows, how it moves through Pennsylvania and then inches its way up through western New York State and eventually into Canada. But you're looking at 8 a.m. Wednesday, and I think what you'll notice is although the winds die down, there's not a lot of variation in our weather now. It's going to be more clouds than sun, the occasional shower, a little on the breezy side. I think it'll take until late week till we see a little bit more in the way of sunshine. So even on Thursday when the circulation's over Canada, we're not seeing dramatically different conditions. So occasionally there's a gusty shower and temperatures will be in the mid-50s. And again, not much variation on Thursday even when it's around. I think when we get to late week and the weekend, we get more sunshine. So here's a look at your forecast. Mostly cloudy skies. It's breezy. There are showers, but at least now it's wet. weather that doesn't get in the way of the cleanup. Breezy and a passing shower during the day tomorrow. Your 7-day AccuWeather forecast. So over the next couple of days, what you see is really what you get. Mid-50s by day, mid-40s by night, some 30s in the suburbs, and this now becomes a problem with some of these colder nights, especially in the suburbs where we don't have any power. It'll be tough to stay warm, so think about that going forward. And then as we go into the weekend, we start to get brisk and brighter. Saturday's not a bad day, but it's a little chilly. And then if we're able to run the marathon on Sunday, it's actually decent running weather. It's a little chilly, though, and it'll also be a little on the windy side with some sun and high clouds. Seems like a long time away, though. And then as we go into early next week, there'll be a little storm that's along the coast and hopefully just slides to our south. I won't even get into that right now. But in the meantime, big thing to know is the temperatures are going to generally be in the 50s, and the conditions you see now, the only change is going to be that the wind gets a little bit lighter. Bill, Sade, back to you for now.
I think out of all of this, we can deal with that, Lee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. 96 mile an hour in next. All right, we want to get back to Sarah Wallace, the site of many, many rescues today in Little Ferry, New Jersey. And Sarah, I'm told you have more going on right now.
Absolutely, Bill and Sade. A vehicle just pulling up right now. A lot of people, as you can see, who have just been rescued. And this has been a constant stream, as we've been showing you all day long. People being rescued by vehicles, by boats. And let me just talk to the Sinclair family who just came off one of the trucks here. Just describe for me what it was like for you last night and then waiting for the rescue today.
The high tide was, like we said, that's why we're getting out. We can't go through another high tide. It was just, and it happened so fast. Within 15 minutes, we had 10 feet of water. And we lucky to get up to the second floor, so that's why I think everybody's deciding to get out. We just,
I know, I can tell it's an emotional time. You're clutching your dog and just...
No, it's been cold, and it happened in 10 minutes. You tried to get, all of our pictures are gone, and, you know, what are you going to do? We had our kids, and that was the best thing.
Yeah.
That was it.
I can't imagine the trauma and you guys going through this. At least you're all together as a family, but I just can't imagine what it's going to be like. And you're now going to the shelter.
No, we're going to go to my daughter's house in Hazard.
Your daughter's house. So at least you have a daughter's house. A lot of people are going to the shelter.
My house.
Okay. All right. At least you have a house, and you can help us.
We are. We're lucky for that. Help us.
All right. Well, listen. I know it's a tough day, and it's going to be a very tough, long time for you all. But at least you're all safe. And
we are.
Thank you. All right. So we're seeing so many of these stories, so many touching stories. You know, earlier we were talking about the fact of what do you take when you've got just a second to get out, when the rescue crews come to your door and say, you know, grab what you can, take your plastic bag, take whatever, and you have to go. And that's what's been happening all day here. You know, people thought that they could ride this out, and then the water just came.
Sarah, these stories that you've been bringing us, just hearing that person saying, all of a sudden our home was rushed with water in just 10 minutes. And you're looking around, what do I grab? What do I grab? You know, these pictures, but then you say, you know what? The only thing that's important are my kids, those that I love, and to get out. You know, I just can't imagine what these people were going through.
Well, and you know, we've been talking all day long about this is a flood-prone area, but nobody anticipated this, and we have been told that the levee broke. So that added, of course, to this, the magnitude of this. And again, let's just go back. There's just story after story after story that we're seeing. You know, you can see a lady here. She's clutching what she has, and it's just an amazing picture because you've been seeing the pontoon boats, we've been seeing the airboats, we've been seeing these large 5-ton military vehicles. You know, look at this family right here now. They're clutching their pets. You know, they're elderly people, and it is just a heart-wrenching situation. And people actually thought, with the older people especially, that it was best to stay in their homes. You know, you can't move 80 and 90-year-old people who've got their medications and they don't want to get moved. And so people thought that they would be okay, and then they just realized that this was something nobody could have anticipated. So, you know, as we're seeing more dramatic pictures here, you know, they've got what they could in that plastic bag that's now rain-soaked. slope because the rain has started again. And, you know, Lee's been talking about high tide. High tide coming back this evening. We don't think it's going to be as serious as it was, but still people are concerned about the fact that high tide is going to come back here. A lot of people did not want to go through another high tide, so they are getting out, and it is just something that has been continuing all day long. We thought it would abide a little bit, subside, I should say, and it has just been continuing. So, you know, the stories are heart-wrenching, every single one. Little kids, babies, you know, elderly people, some with heart conditions and health conditions, and the rescue crews have been absolutely unbelievable.
Sarah, if you said this, I missed it, and I'm sorry, so I'll be redundant and ask again. Where are these people going? Do you know?
Most are going, well, you know, you just heard the Sinclair family. Yeah. They actually have their daughter's house to go to. They're lucky. Most are going to the shelter that is set up near Teterboro at the high school. So that's a shelter that's set up for them. They're being actually moved out of some of the big 5-ton vehicles and moved into different vehicles and then taken to the high school, to the staging area, and unclear about how long they will have to stay in the shelter, and clear how long it's going to be before, actually, we're just being told that we got to get out of the way. It's unclear how long they'll be in the shelter before they can get back in their homes and you know, take a look. Yeah. So, you know, that's, so here you're looking at action here right here. You know, another truck going back to check the areas, make sure that if necessary that they're bringing out more people.
Well, that is a good sign, seeing that truck out there.
If you're one of the people who needs to be rescued.
Oh, okay.
No question. Sarah Wallace out in Little Ferry, New Jersey for us, where one of the levees did break and it caused lots of flooding, and the river overflowed again. So, Sarah, keep us posted, and whenever you have, you know, rescues going on like you did, just, you know, tell us and we'll get right back to you.
You know, we're talking about, Sarah, thank you. We've been talking about these heart-wrenching stories, and Josh Einiger brought us one of those stories in City Island in the Bronx. And one story that I remember from just a few hours ago from your reporting was the restaurant owner. He just lost his mother 3 days ago. He's had that business for 30 years, and he has lost everything.
Institution there at City Island.
Yeah, well, actually, we've been to 2 different institutions, guys, and that is a horrible story. That's a lobster bar where this guy's been in business, as he said, Sade, for I think he said 38 years, and he evacuated yesterday as he was supposed to. He's mourning his mother, who passed away, just happened to have passed away a couple of days ago, and he returned to find water had just inundated his restaurant. The good news for him, though, is that his restaurant is still structurally sound and he'll be able to clean it up, unlike what you could say about the other tragedy here on City Island today. This is Tony's Pier. It's another institution here right at the end of City Island Avenue, and there is almost nothing recognizable here. Pretty much anything that wasn't metal or brick or cement is gone, and that is because this whole area, and Dave, this is Little Neck Bay right here. It had totally inundated City Island Avenue, and then when something happened, probably, I'm told, electrical in the kitchen, when the power went out, possibly, something happened to spark this fire. And let's show you the video of what it looked like. People stood around for hours and watched it burn. This is video from a guy named Matt Bryanis, who stood here in the wind. And it's not that firefighters weren't here. It's not that they weren't doing everything they could do. The problem was they just couldn't get close enough because the water was so deep. And they were close enough that they actually raised some of their tower ladders in the winds yesterday, putting themselves at great risk to try to shoot water on the fire, but they just couldn't get enough water on that fire. A couple of hours ago, we ran into one of the firefighters, now off duty, who spent the night frantically trying to save this restaurant. He was exhausted and spent, and here's a little bit of what he had to say.
What is it like looking at a fire